This is the Prestigious Initiative, and these are the points. I'm Chris Bean. Joining me is Mr. Chris Kent. Hello, Mr. Kent.
Hello, sir.
Today we're going to go over your conversation with Andres. And so I guess to start with, do you have any key takeaways from your conversation with him?
Yes, sir. You and I talked right before we sat down to do this episode, and there's many things that Andres talked about that are knowledgeable and spot on and right to the point. I just don't quite understand it. I'm not sure all about loans or banks or financial anything this or that, but there were a few things he talked about which I can understand, and some things I took away from his conversation is working on things, being more efficient, trying to benefit everybody, using tools that are available to us, and communicating the importance of what you're doing to people that are around you and people that are working with you. And so I think those four main things are the takeaways that I thought were most beneficial. Again, very knowledgeable and smart. Just some of that stuff went right over my head. Not that he doesn't know what he's talking about, but I don't know exactly what he's talking about. But I could take away at least those four things from our conversation.
Yeah, so let's kind of go back to the beginning. It was really interesting to me that he started his sort of career life and even early childhood in cars, where his grandfather was a driver, and then he started as a car salesman, and then he moved from there into being able to help people receive a car loan on a more efficient type of path, and develop the software to to help and ensure and pull the strings to orchestrate that to happen. That was really interesting. It's cool when the things that we as humans like and enjoy and grow up doing help to become our careers, or at least help to get us to where our career will eventually go in the future. And very clearly he was able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. That's also why at one point I asked him if he was still, liked cars or involved with cars. Because, like I said, I think in our conversation, it goes one of two ways. You do something when you're young for so long, you get sick of it and you never want to see it again, or you love it through and through the whole time, day in and day out, and you really enjoy it. And so I'm happy to hear that he still enjoys cars in many different ways, even though he's dealing with cars on a certain degree, to a certain level in his startup and his day job. But like you said, it's awesome to hear that you can take something you love, something that's been with you from childhood, and incorporate that into your life and your career as you grow up. And unfortunately, I think that is not always the case. And in most cases is the minority. We don't hear of everyone doing that. Sometimes you hear the opposite of, I used to do this, I used to love this when I was younger, but I kind of gave that up or stopped doing that as I grew up and had to find a job. And it's not always something we can make part of our lives. But if Andres, we can learn anything from him. If you can, try to make that part of your life and try to retain or hold on to that joy and excitement from the things that you love doing.
Yeah, so it was cool how he shifted or used that his business and pivoted from helping people, automate the car process, or the car lending process, and now he helps financial institutions to become more efficient in what they do. And really they're wanting to automate the process in order to get a quick turnaround with either a yes or no, because then the consumer, the person that is asking for the loan, knows, okay, yes, I'm going to use you as my lending company, or I'm not going to use you. And so the quicker that turnaround process can happen ensures that, if it's a yes, then that end user is going to actually use them because of the software that he has, or they're going to know, okay, yep, that's not going to work for me, and so on. So that is really, really cool to be able to automate that in the most efficient way to help the financial institutions in order to help the end user be able to do that process a little bit better.
And that works into two of the key takeaways that I had. Number one, being efficient and being productive, because if they can streamline that process and get a yes or no as quick as possible, it's going to help the whole thing go a little bit faster. And number two, it's benefiting both parties, because the business is benefiting from getting a quick answer, the consumer is benefiting from getting a quick answer, and they can either move forward or move on, or it helps that whole process and makes it efficient and is useful for both parties.
Yeah, it was really kind of interesting where you talked about early in life, you want to build optionalities. So you want to build opportunities early in life so that later on in life you can have access to those. And he said that, early in life you want to build the opportunities because later in life sometimes you have to pay for those things. But if you have those early on, then you can just have them. So I thought that was just a really, and he said that kind of just a kind of almost short, and I just kind of scribbled it down quickly there. Another thing, of course, he shifted from doing direct to consumer in order to do business to business. So his business now is communicating with other businesses to help the end user, ultimately still to help the end user, but now instead of directly communicating to the end user, they're going through another business. And so they're helping other businesses help the end user. And of course, that was a interesting shift that he had to do. And with that, he talked about being able to kind of see the horizon, see the opportunities and potential things that might happen in order to capitalize on those so that they can continue and move forward in the best way.
And I doubt he would have been able to pivot so efficiently or have the foresight to make that decision if he hadn't had all those different how did you word it?
Early in life, build opportunities.
If he hadn't done that work, thank you. If he hadn't done that work to set up all those opportunities and viable options or paths he could take, he probably wouldn't have been able to adapt or pivot as quickly as he did, or as successfully as he did, because he didn't have all those things in place. And so that's a real life, real time example of the benefit of doing that early on, or even now trying to develop some of those different options, different paths, and have that in your back pocket. So if you need to change or you need to go a different direction, it doesn't require so much work because you've already done the work involved with making those preparations.
And another thing is he talked about efficiency drives profitability for lenders. And I think we can kind of dissect that a little bit, because efficiency drives profitability for businesses. The more efficient a business is, the more profit that business can make. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, he talked about it in terms of lenders because that's what he's is doing right now. But, I think that whatever we're doing, efficiency, if you can do something more efficient than your competitor can do it, people are going to go to you to do that thing, which is going to drive the profitability of whatever it is that you're doing. So if you can be more efficient in the things that you're doing, people are going to turn to you as the source, the key, the go-to people for whatever that is. And so, I thought that was kind of a good takeaway, because the more efficient you can do, and of course you have to be careful, because when efficiency starts to come into play, people start to figure out, okay, what corners can we cut? Okay, but that's not necessarily how you should go about to be efficient. You have to do all the things, all the steps, but how can you do them more efficiently? Not necessarily cut corners, but how can I do this process faster or easier or simpler than what we are doing it right now? And be able to do that, I think, involves a good understanding of whatever the process is, but then an opportunity to think outside of the box and not just be stuck in on whatever the opportunity is that you're doing right now, but to see what is moving around outside of that box. Yeah. So, another thing you guys talked about was decision making. And with decision making, you want to be able to learn and improve your facts when new facts are available. So don't be stuck like in your kind of old ways of thinking. If there's new information, and in his area, fintech, there's new information coming up all the time, it seems. So being able to gather that new information, what does that mean to me? Do I need to adjust and move and change something? Or can I just keep doing what I'm doing, and not being so dug in the ground on whatever it is that you are holding as facts if and when new facts become available?
I think the practicality of that mentality is so simple, but also so effective, because like you said, rather than getting stuck in your idea of what you want to do or what you want your business to be, if you can look at the facts and adapt according to the facts and change, it seems to be that you can't go wrong. If you just adapt to the what's actually happening and work with what's actually going on, if you can make the appropriate changes, I don't know how you would lose. And I think it's very easy to get stuck in to certain ways, or get stuck into the idea of what you want something to be, but maybe take some time and look at it practically and find out what's actually going on, and then act according to the reality of the situation rather than maybe what you want it to be.
Yeah, I think from that, I wrote down, don't be so narrow-minded. Begin to see upcoming trends and adapt and to move and grow, right? And I think that is essential no matter what area of life we're in. Be able to see, don't be so narrow-minded. Begin to see what is upcoming, adapt, move, and grow. I think is that was a good thing. Again, I think that not just for what he's doing specifically, but what everybody can do despite where we are. And then you guys kind of talked about digital transformation. And again, that embracing changes came up. That came up a couple times. And so I kind of underlined it and drew a box around it because I thought that, that was kind of a key takeaway from that conversation was to be able to embrace changes, adapt. And you guys talked about adopting new tools when they become available. And so with that, for him specifically, if other companies, other businesses are using these new shiny little things and you're not, you may seem like you're behind the times, like you're not moving and growing and changing because, the cycle of the technology is increasing so fast nowadays. It seems like there's something new every day. And if you're not up on all of those things, but your competition is, then it's going to seem like they're ahead of the game on you. So that's where it comes into being able to embrace the changes. Oh, this is a new thing. All right, great. Let's see how we can adopt this in. Okay, great. Boom, we put it in there because that is essential. And he talked too about early on, he put a beta process, a beta of his company, of his process, of his product, that's the word, of his product out to people. And it wasn't fully fleshed out and done, but he still gave it to people to use so they could kind of see where it was going to go and what was going on at the time. And I think that probably a certain percentage of his product almost has to be in beta all of the time because of the technology changes that are happening on a continual basis. That was really interesting. Another key thing that he said was his mindset, his goal is to help the industry move forward. Right? And we talked to several guests at this point now, where it's not just about the thing that they're doing. Their dream, their mission is to not just improve where they are and who they are in their business, but really is about pushing the industry that they're in further along. Now, if they're leading the pack, that's awesome. But it seems like I'm guessing this a little bit, but it seems like whether they're leading the pack is fine, or if they're right up close to the front is fine as well, because they're interested in hoping to help to move whatever industry they're in forward, and not just to benefit themselves, but to benefit everybody that is there and around them.
I think that mentality is very easy to spot. If someone is self-centered and only trying to achieve things on their own, it's very easy to see from a mile away. But the opposite is also true. When someone is focused on helping everybody win, helping the whole industry win, it's very clear by the way they talk, their ambitions, their goals, and just the things that they're making, that they have a larger interest. And I for one would tend to gravitate towards someone who wants everybody to win rather than the person who's only out to look for themselves or only looking out for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing he said was, you want to, if okay, back up a little bit. Sometimes in the industry that he's in, people are stuck into long-term contracts. And you pose the question, okay, what do you do in those type of instances? Well, the thing that you do is you build those relationships with those people so that if and when they need something, or if or when that contract does finally end, then you are the natural answer to whatever questions that they have. They were going to seek to you for that advice or that information. So even though you are, calling people up and you're doing cold calls or whatever it is that you're doing, and they say no, no doesn't mean no forever. No just means perhaps no right now. Because in those instances where they're stuck into that long-term contract, okay, they can't do anything. They're stuck. They can't break the contract. So what do they have to do? They have to continue and let that contract go out. And then you can be the natural solution after that by continually providing them with key information and strategic details as they move forward.
Yeah, that's an example of just giving up because the work might be hard. you can put some work in and develop relationships. So eventually down the road, when that contract expires, you're their first thought, and you can slide in and secure that contract. But if you hear, no, I'm in contract. Oh, okay. Don't touch them. Don't call them. They're not interested. Leave them alone. Uh, you know, you're kind of excluding the potential for a future partnership or future business, just because it's not there presently. And so there's nothing wrong with trying to develop that relationship, stay in touch with them, and be that next choice when they can, because like you said, they're stuck. They can't do anything about it. Maybe they want to do something about it, but they can't. They're in contract. But if you can be that first thought after that contract is up, there's some business right off the bat. You've done the work and you've developed that relationship, and it's something you could have in the future. And it's again, you got to put a little bit of work in to have a future payoff, which it seems to be contrary to how the society works today. We want that instant gratification, but it could be worth the investment in that relationship.
And of course, the tough thing for this is you have to be able to walk the line between being present and helpful, but not pushy and nagging or what I forget the word. I'm losing the word that I'm looking for here. Pushy or yeah, pushy, I guess. We'll go with that. Pushy. Because you don't want to be consistently there. Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? They're going to get frustrated with you. They're like, get rid of this guy. They're going to stop answering your calls. You're going to seem like you're overbearing too much and always there. You have to walk the line and be able to be present and helpful without being naggy or overbearing with whatever the information is. So you have to be able to, toe that line carefully. Another thing that he talked about, which I thought was really interesting, was essentially, and he didn't say in this many words, but this is how I kind of comprehended it, was more training equals less adoption. He talked about like TikTok, for example. If you had to go through, instructional videos about how to use TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, there would be way less people using that because people don't want to do the work, essentially, in order to learn how to use the product, the program, whatever it is, in order to then use it. They just want to use it. So if you can make your system, whatever system it is that you're doing, or if your products easy to use for the end consumer, they're going to be more likely to use those things because they don't have to read a 50-page document about how to interact with whatever it is that you have. The simpler it is for those people to use, the easier it will be to adopt. So the more training equals less adoption, where you don't want to have to train on how to use it. Just pick it up and use it. That's the best way. That isn't always possible, but I thought that was an interesting takeaway.
I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but he's totally right. You walk into something, if there's 50 pages of instructions, more likely to put it down and walk away from that thing because it's too complicated. It's too hard to use. And so the user friendliness is definitely something to look out for or be aware of. And I agree. Like I said, the more simple it is to use, the more likely I will be to use it.
Yes. Another key point here was innovation is always happening. The important thing is we learn how and when to adopt that information. And I think both of those, how and when, are essential because if innovation is happening and it's not very fleshed out or the opportunity to add whatever that innovation is into your system, I'm saying system in this terms because it doesn't, if you're in fintech, then great, you can interact with it like that. But if you're, a manager, whatever it is, but innovation's always happening despite whatever field that you're in. So what you need to do is understand that you need to be learning those things that are happening, or at least be aware of those things that are happening, and then see on the horizon when and how to adopt those into your system, because those are very key things. Because you don't want to be, the known as the people that have outdated technology. Great, I'm sure it works, but if it's not efficient, if it's not effective, and they have to go through, long training manuals in order to use your system, they're not going to do it. They're going to go to somebody who's sleek and smooth and new, and they'll use that information instead. Have clarity on what sets you apart from your competition, right? And I think that is a huge takeaway, right? Have clarity on what you do better or different than what your competition is doing, right? Because that will help to set you apart. Then you can start to talk up those things because you know what you do that's different than them. You know what you do that is better than them. Of course, you have to be objective as you talk about that or as you communicate that information. But I thought that that was really, really interesting.
Not only do you know what to leverage against your competitor, but you also know what to focus in on. Because if you do one thing better than someone else does, maybe you should spend some extra time investing in that one thing that's going to set you apart and trying to advance that or strengthen that or whatever it is and make that a platform to kind of work off of. So being aware of that is huge in many different ways.
Yeah. Another big proponent that he is of, I said that sentence really terribly, I'm sorry. He's another big proponent of low to no code technology. And I think no to low code technology is fascinating. In fact, our website is no code technology because we use a program called Notion. There's no coding that's involved in that. Just plug and play different blocks and you can move them around. And that's how we built our website. And so people are able to interact with technology now in a way that was not even thought of years ago. And that speaks on the more training equals less adoption, right? Because if we had to go through a long training manual or like literally classes at a college in order to learn how to code for the website, we're just not going to do that. Like the amount of people that do that are so low. But now pretty well anybody has access to the no to low coding type of information, and we could build things and oh wow, look at this cool thing we did, because it's not ones and zeros anymore. It's not even necessarily in Java code or HTML code or anything anymore. Really, it's beyond that because the industry has adopted new information as innovation has happened, and now we have no to low code technology, which is wonderful. I think that another cute, really cool thing you guys talked about was strategies for entrepreneurs, and I'm going to go through the list of them. Then, if we want, we can kind of dissect some of them. He talked about do what needs to get done, right? Do all of the grunt work in order to get your startup off the ground, right? Be a jack of all trades. Learn when necessary to delegate whatever the information is. When necessary, learn to delegate. Be persuasive. Work on your communication skills. Build resources. Understand that most startups will fail. Understand that most startups will fail. When you're connected, sorry, when you're convicted, then you can convict others. When you are convicted, then you can convict others. And I also wrote down that, and this is a quote from Nietzsche, and I kind of adopted it a little bit differently, is have a why for yourself. Then you can bear any how to get your business off the ground. And so I just kind of paraphrase a little bit, but really, and that kind of speaks on the early stages, is you need to do the tough work, the work that you thought was beneath you in order to get the business off the ground, because otherwise it's not going to do it, because nobody else is going to do that work for you, because you don't have anybody, you have no employees as you start. I thought all of that was really valuable.
I like those insights, especially because it's realistic. You think that you're an entrepreneur, you got tons of money, you sit back and hardly do any work at all. But really, as an entrepreneur, you're starting a business, you're doing all of the work. And at a certain point in time, you start to delegate that responsibility to other people. And I think that at that point in time, it's important to remember your position and what you are and what it means to you. And like you said, if you have that reason behind doing what you are doing, it's easy to keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, like the humility involved and the humility that's necessary for being in that position, I think is something that we could all benefit from, and understanding that we have to do the hard work, and we probably will never stop having to do the hard work on many different levels. And the day that we think that we can stop doing the hard work is the day we need to probably do a little bit of reflection and think about, where am I? Why am I feeling this way? And do I really deserve to sit back and relax while, my business is where it is?
Yes. And I thought it was really interesting, and I have never heard about this before. Maybe you have, but the fox and the hedgehog.
I've never heard that before either.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like a take on the tortoise and the hare, but it was not. So the fox and the hedgehog. The fox has wide knowledge base, but it's not very deep. It's very shallow. And the hedgehog has a deep knowledge base, but it's not very wide. And so I think that those two concepts are very interesting because I I can think of quite a few people who are foxes, where they know or they think they know a lot about a lot of things, but they don't. It's not very deep. They can talk about a lot of things, but they don't know it very deeply. But I don't know very many hedgehogs where they have a deep knowledge base in one or a few small topics. I thought that was really, really interesting. And again, that's brand new information to me. I never heard that before. Yeah. Um, another thing in talking about learning and growing, he talked about the essential, the necessity to stay up to date in your area of information, right? So whatever it is that you do, strive to learn and grow in that area. So for him, he's consuming information that is direct to what he is doing. If you are doing something wildly different, let's say you're a manager and you want to be a better manager, then you need to go out and try to learn what other managers are doing to learn and grow and be better. So that was really interesting to me that of course, it seems common sense. Like, okay, if you're X, you want to learn and be better at X. So that's the information you should consume. But people don't always do that because that seems like work, and people don't want to do work outside of work. So yeah. Anyways, I thought that was really, really interesting.
Well, that ties into earlier topic you brought up, which is the adaptability and the ability to pivot and know what's happening. When you have your finger on the pulse of your industry, nothing's going to surprise you because you're on top of that information. You're on top of the changes and the trends and the things that are going on. And so it's important to be aware of that, be reading up on it, be listening, be watching videos, and be on the heartbeat of your industry so that you can take your business in a place that's going to be beneficial and you have an idea of what's going on rather than being surprised by the next trend or being surprised by a dip or jump in something, because you're educated and you're on top of it. So it was cool to hear him mention that in one way earlier and then bring it back up again at the end because it's obviously a tool and a skill and a resource that he's taking advantage of. I think we could all take advantage of it in different ways.
Yeah, I think the last thing for me, which I always find interesting when people do this, but he's consuming information, YouTube videos or whatever, at two times or 1.5 to 2 times speed, and I think that is, um, I'm a big proponent of that, big adopter of that. Once I learned that, oh man, I can watch these videos even faster. Yes, yes, absolutely. And I guess maybe I should back up when I say YouTube. I think I interact with YouTube differently probably than what the general people do. Is I'm not watching like cat videos at 2 times speed or people. What do people watch on YouTube? Fail videos or something? I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I'm watching to like lectures and podcast clips and stuff like that, like actual like knowledge information. But I'm watching at 2 times speed, so like I can watch twice the amount of videos. I can take 2 classes in 45 minutes as opposed to one class in 45 minutes just because I'm consuming the information. Now, am I actually like retaining all the information at 2 times speed? Probably not. Probably not. So there are some times where I'll go back and I'll like, okay, actually I want to slow this down. Or sometimes, Jordan Peterson, he talks quick as it is. And so listening to him at 2 times speed sometimes is almost like 4 times speed. I'm like, okay, we gotta slow you down there. But I can't quite understand the things that you're saying. But anyways, it's always, I always like to hear other people that are doing that as well. It makes me feel less strange, for lack of a better phrase.
I just give you a hard time because I can't ever process it that fast. So I give you a hard time because I don't know how to do it myself. Maybe it's my own insecurity or my own uh, feeling of shortcoming. I don't do that. So if you're a listener out there that's like me, listening to it at normal speed, I'm with you.
Again, I said this as we were talking with him, but my family, because I have YouTube on TV, like they'll play a song or something. Why is the song going so fast? Ah, man, I'm sorry, I got 2 times speed, and yeah, I do. If and when I do listen to a scripted podcast, or if I listen to a fiction book, an audiobook, I listen to that on proper time so that I can get the right pacing and pausing, because I think that's essential in the storytelling process. But as for 98% of the other information that I watch, it's faster.
You got a good point. If you're using it to study, using it for educational purposes, you can get twice the information in the same amount of time. Seems like a no-brainer. Make sure you follow us on social media. You can find the podcast at Prestigious Pod.
You can find me, Chris Bean, at Chris Bean Official.
You can find me, Mr. Kent, at Mr. Chris R. Kent.
And if you like our content and would like to subscribe to our email, you can do that via our social media or on the website.
Make sure you also join our Discord for exclusive content and personal interactions.
If you would like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life by me, Chris Bean, you can do that by reaching out on one of my social medias or by emailing the podcast at prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com.
Those are the points. Make sure you come back next week for even more points and another great conversation. Until next time, I'm Chris Kent.
And I'm Chris Bean.